Welcome to the Dig Endurance Podcast, where we are all about digging deep and discovering the power of emotional resilience. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by my brother, Sean.
As endurance athletes and business owners, we have learned a thing or two about facing and overcoming adversity. We are here to share inspiring stories from our guests that will help you to find that inner strength when you feel like you are running on empty.
Are you ready? Let's dig in. Welcome to the Dig Endurance Podcast. We are here with Jenna McGill, and I knew Jenna as Jenna Rivera growing up. We went to elementary and middle school together, and our siblings also knew each other quite a bit growing up. So it's been probably 10 years or more, but it's fun to be back here and doing this. So we are excited to bring Jenna on. I'm gonna let her kind of share her background, but we're excited to talk a little bit about, her upbringing, her family, also what she does. I know she has a big following and involvement with High Fit that she does. And so anyway, Jenna, whatever you feel like you'd like to share a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, your upbringing, what you do. I know you're a mom too. So
I am.
Any of that you're willing to share to get started here?
Schools you went to.
Yeah.
Just basic connections.
Okay. So I was raised here, so born and raised, and stayed in town, which I think is pretty amazing.
Never left.
Nope.
Vacuum of Fresno.
I know.
I got sucked back in. I came back.
Sucks you in.
It really does. And actually, my whole family is still here. So it's pretty neat that all of us stayed here, all the cousins and everything.
That's cool.
Grew up here. My dad is a pastor. I am one of 4 siblings, and my mom has worked in the school district for, I don't even know how many years now, too many probably. Oh, cool. And I had an amazing upbringing, very involved, active in church. I loved sports. I loved school. And grew up, I went to Liberty with you, and then I ended up going to Kasner, and then I transferred to Buchanan for high school. I know that's I know. But had a good experience. Had a few years off the beaten path in high school. I always joke that I was the black sheep a little bit for a few years, but being the firstborn that I am, I came back pretty quick.
That's okay.
Yeah. And then
It's like Aaron's the black sheep.
Yeah.
For sure.
You have to have one or 2 in a bigger family, always. So I ended up going to Fresno State and finished my degree there. And during that time, I worked in sales, which kind of was a catalyst for the career I'm in now. I am a frame rep, so I work in the optical industry.
Oh, cool.
And I've been doing that for about 14 years. And I absolutely love it. It is flexible enough that I can be available to my 2 boys.
Awesome.
And works with my husband's schedule. He's a firefighter. So It's been an awesome job for me. And then I also, on the side, teach High Fitness and Surge Fit. So there's 2 formats I teach.
Oh, okay.
But High Fitness is what I'm currently teaching right now.
What's the other one?
I've never heard of
Surge Fit. So Surge, yes.
Okay.
So it is high intensity interval training, strength training. So it's actually incorporates weights in it. So there's 2 different formats within, and now they have actually Surge stations. But it's similar to High Fitness, but there's also the weights aspect. So I think that
So like
has
a more
drawn
hybrid type approach.
Yes,
but
yes.
Not as long. Okay.
Yeah. So and it's all choreographed to music. So it caught my eye. It was just very similar format, but obviously involved weights, which I love. That's a huge part of my background. I've always loved weight training. So got certified in both of those, and then I was a spin instructor. I've kind of bounced around, but fitness has been a huge part of my life.
Awesome.
Since I can remember.
Can relate.
Yes.
We love it.
Yeah.
We love it too.
I'm in the right spot then. Yeah.
Yes. That's awesome. So I didn't catch. Is Surge related to High Fitness, like a different program of it, or it's
No,
completely
they're
separate?
completely separate formats.
Got it.
So it's a completely separate format. And right now I was teaching it, but I'm down to just one class a week just because of my work schedule and my boys being in sports and
Do
just
you
life.
do those? Is that at a like at a gym? Is that where do you do them at?
Yeah, so I teach at GB3,
you're at
George
GB3.
Brown.
Okay,
Yeah.
in Clovis or in
Yep,
Fresno?
in Clovis.
The big one in Clovis?
The big one in Clovis.
Off of Herndon?
Yep.
Okay.
I see you like once a month there.
Yeah, yeah. I
every
see your
couple
wife.
months.
Yeah,
go-
we see each other often.
You go to the one in
for-
Clovis?
Just for swimming.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
I've seen you at the North one.
Oh, at the North, yeah.
was
I'll
gonna say-
sub or I'll pop in classes here. It's a very
yeah.
supportive community, as
Cool.
you've probably seen through social media. It's a very family oriented. It's your fitness family. They become like your second
That's
family,
cool.
which is really neat.
We've got some. Well, Sean's wife, and then also a couple sisters. They very much like High Fitness a
yeah,
lot.
she knows. She knows.
Oh,
Megan
yeah.
really well.
Love Megan.
That's
yeah.
cool. Awesome. So okay, good background.
Yes.
So I guess with fitness and then like working and as a mother, I mean that's a lot to balance. Like I guess talk about that a little bit. Talk about I mean, I don't think it just happens overnight where you're balancing working a full-time job and you've got your fitness community and you've got, your relationship with your husband, you've got 2 kids. Like, I mean, I don't know, talk a little bit about that and I guess balancing that and how you, I guess, manage to have success in each of those things while still keeping yourself balanced, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I would say that the balance is an ongoing thing. It's something that you're learning to do as you go. I don't think it just comes. I think it's something that you have to act on and really think about and work at. And I think for me, when I stopped playing sports in high school, things changed for me. I didn't have that in me anymore. It was there, but I wasn't using it as an outlet anymore. And I kind of went down like a darker path because I had a lot more free time and just the world, I was out of that sports arena that takes up so much of your time. I didn't have that team camaraderie. So I think when I graduated, going through college, trying to find something that gave me that feeling of purpose and feeling good about myself, because I didn't for a lot of years. And I think the gym became that place for me.
Yeah.
So basically, when I was in college, I started, taking classes and then starting to squeeze, workouts in between classes. I would say, okay, today I have a break between 11 and 1, trying to squeeze it in. And I think from there, as I started to feel better about myself, I started making changes in my life because I saw the results.
Nice.
And some days were not great. I mean, or seasons, I should say, that were maybe seemed less successful or I'm not seeing results. But I think it's like something inside of you changes or starts to change and the momentum is there.
Sure.
So I started to feel that and, work at trying to become the best version of myself. So
That's awesome.
I think bringing that into now working and motherhood and everything else, I just feel like you have to have that inside of you, that drive and desire, the it factor,
Yep.
and
I that's good.
yeah,
I think awareness is a huge part of that.
It is.
So you mentioned instead of days or weeks, you said seasons, right?
seasons, yeah.
So I have seasons all the time. Ask him. I have seasons where I'm like all out.
Yeah.
Or I'm Iron Man, or I'm work, or I'm school, or I'm whatever it is. When you're aware of each season and how you adapt and get better, I have found that each season gets better.
Right.
I like what you said about being an athlete growing up. I don't think I was really prepared either for like when I stopped playing sports at the end of high school. I think you don't realize how much of your identity is missing when it all of a sudden is gone, like overnight. And I realized, it maybe sounds lame to say, but like I need the the endorphins. Like I literally, that's like oxygen to me. So it was just a matter of what that, you're not, that sports team dynamic is less available if you're not playing in college after you're done. And so you kind of have to carve out it almost forces you to carve out a new regimen. And yeah, whether it's finding your new community of what you're doing or what is my sport going to be like, I drifted way more back to running and like endurance sports post like high school, college.
Yeah.
But like finding that, like in that moment of when you're in that time or that season, I guess, as you put it, of trying to figure out, oh shoot, like, okay, basketball's over or baseball's over. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
That can be hard for some people. Like if you don't have that healthy physical aspect or that outlet, whatever that looks like, that can be a problem.
Yeah.
And then squeezing it into balance, fatherhood, motherhood, job, that's a whole nother conversation too.
Totally.
But anyway, I liked how you said that. I can relate to the once the transitional, I guess, time frame or the period you're talking about, that can be a challenge. Okay. Well, so I know that, similar to Sean and I mean, we are in, behavioral mental health. We operate Forward Family Services together, which we talk about from time to time in our podcast. And so, those personal and family struggles are near and dear to us. It's something we're passionate about, and we literally try to serve that need every day here.
Yeah.
Specifically in the Central Valley where we all live. And so as part of that journey, you've talked about, from high school up to now, anything that you feel is share worthy there as far as it pertains to, I don't know, things that you've gone through with your own family or personally that you've overcome, or as part of that journey, in that balance that you've managed to achieve pretty well, it sounds like, and are still working to maintain. Does that make sense?
Totally. So yes, have there been struggles over the last 15 years? Several, probably two. Not enough time on this podcast to share.
Yeah.
But I would say the ones that stand out for me, first of all, personally, is the struggle when I had my boys. With my first son, I had postpartum depression, and I didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
It's very taboo. It wasn't at the time that I had 10 years ago really talked about. And I just couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I, during that time frame, really lost the desire to take care of myself. And unfortunately, because I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about it, that was a really difficult and dark time for me personally on my journey. I really had to dig deep, like we talked about seasons. During that season, finding something to motivate me to not necessarily get back where I was, because I think when you become a mom or a parent, your life is different. But I needed to find something to find those endorphins and that spark, what I knew my whole life. I needed to find that again. So I think, going through that and finding the high fitness community, that was huge for me. Like I said, I had worked out. I kind of, up and down with what type of workouts. I really didn't have any direction, but I just was trying to show up. That was my goal every day.
Yep.
I just need to show up for myself. And then finding the high fitness community and this community of people where you could show up just as you are and you were accepted. And I mean, the first 4 or 5 times, I'm glad no one was there to film me like they film you today, because I was an absolute wreck, to say the least. But hey, I'm an instructor now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a part of my life where I felt like finding that community, whatever that looks like for you. For me, it was the fitness community that really just took me in, when I was in a broken place.
Yeah, we talk a lot about your circle, having your circle, your community. And it's one thing to have it, and it's another thing to have the right circle, like a truly supportive community and circle. Sometimes we talk about the importance of ditching the wrong ones if they're not the right circle, but it sounds like you got a great circle and a great community. And then again, I think about, you mentioned the transition from high school sports to kind of growing up. I think postpartum challenges are a lot more common than people think.
Yeah.
And I think what people underestimate is I have 4 kids. There's all the hype on, and listen, they're awesome. And there's all the hype on what to look forward to.
Correct.
There's zero attention on how your life, the second that child arrives, your whole routine is very different, especially for the mother, especially for the mom. I can tell you with complete confidence, not one person had that conversation with me or with my wife, Kelsey.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I don't know, some people might hear that and think, well, I mean, it goes without saying, but does it though? Do you really stop to think about how often you need to tend to that child's needs? Do you really stop to plan, all the different things from the middle of the night to the start of the day, to the middle of the day, to the end of the day? Do you think in all the hours that you once had, and you start adding them up, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 1 hour here, 1 hour there, before you know it, 4 to 6 hours of the day, to this very dependent, child, which again, I'm all for parenthood.
Yes.
I'm not demeaning it. And there's nothing more important, but it's an adjustment, a very big adjustment. And if you're not really mentally prepared, which I wasn't either in a lot of ways, it is a big change. And
even when you adjust, you still can't adjust.
And if it takes
lifetime adjustment.
And if it takes those core things, which it often does, it can't take away caring for yourself, eating or drinking, sleeping. It can't take away working. So it takes away your recreational time.
Yeah.
And then depending, that's where the depression and the other things can creep in. For anybody. So I just don't think that that's something that's really well covered or looked at or considered by people, So I'm sure that's very relatable. I know it is for me anyway.
Yeah. And men and women. And that's it. But I really felt like through that community, I was able to connect with so many people that were going through maybe even not the same season, but along the lines of the same season and going through some kind of hardship, whatever that looked like. And looking back, I felt like that was kind of a turning point, I guess, in my adulthood where I was like, this is for me. I need fitness. I want fitness. It kind of shifted my mindset. I want to work out every day because I feel better about myself. I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better coworker.
100%.
It shifts your perspective. And of course, endorphins, there's all the health benefits. But from the mental health benefit side, that's what I know. That's where I saw the shift.
Yeah. I think which you just very well illustrated, I think people grossly underestimate the connection to mental and physical health. Mm-hmm. I think it's vastly understated. And some people think Sean and I, we do marathons, triathlons, and people are just kind of oh, that's, you don't need that. You could do without that. And it's
I'd rather die than not
you could argue that I don't, I guess, need a marathon, but it's not as much time actually as some people think if you plan it out right. But the point is, it's almost some people do just think hey, when you become an adult, that just goes away. I'm if you don't want to be happy and healthy, it goes away. I'm that can never go away from me. Some people really is to them. They think it's a disposable thing. And a lot of times some of these people have challenges that I don't think they connect the dots. I'm hey, and I try to, with my own friends and my own circle, sometimes I try to politely help connect the dots. Hey, you ever just try to go on a walk with your wife, after the kiddos are down or something, if you got one old enough to babysit or anything? And it's no, not really. I'm you should do that. Because the other thing I think they think is whether it's high fitness, which can be pretty intense, or, training like we do, you don't have to, doesn't have to be that.
No.
I tell people, listen, if all you can do is spare 30 to 45 minutes a day to go on a walk or even a jog or whatever, do something.
Anything.
But you can't do nothing, because if you do nothing, it's not good physically, but it will impact you mentally. I mean, that is true. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's well said. So, okay. Postpartum. I appreciate that highlight. Sounds like you adjusted.
Yes.
Overcame. Balanced, were able to bounce back from that. Sounds like fitness was once again a core tenet of that.
But I think there's also a part of that where, yes, I started feeling good, but I think it was also I want to look a certain way too. And that part of it kind of has lingered for, several years now since I've had my kids. And I think up until recently, it became much more than just how I look. It became this shift of, I just want to feel good. And so I think that for me, I guess even as a female, I am in a season of focusing on my whole health. And I think the catalyst for that was a year ago. We lost my brother, one of my brothers, Jonah, to a fentanyl overdose. And that put me in a really dark place, my whole family. And I would say that all of my family members are very strong people. But that almost took us out, all of us. So I think the shift in that is it puts you to the place where you have to make a choice. And I think based on the last, even since I was in sports, you always have a choice, and you have a work ethic, and you have all of these values and things that you've layered over the years. And I think I finally was to that point where I just needed an outlet. It became more than just, I'm exercising to look good or I want to feel good. I just needed something to help me through this.
Yep.
And so I turned again to fitness. Obviously, I also had a spiritual side to that too, focusing on building relationships at the church I go to, working on the spiritual side of my health as well. But I really needed that physical outlet after his passing. And I think over the last year, it has again reminded me that it's not about how I look, it's about how I feel. And so digging deep and coming to that crossroad and Jonah's passing, and then having to dig deep to find that in me to kind of start over again, like where you're like, I just don't want to start over. I just want to be in my bed for 2 weeks. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do anything. And it's almost like you have to start over.
Yep.
It's like, how have I worked out for 20 years of my life and I feel like I'm a beginner again? Yeah. And I feel like it took that fork in the road and that horrible circumstance in my life for me to dig the deepest I've ever dug inside of me to say no.
Yeah. And at that point, that's a lot to unpack. But at that point, if we're listening to what you're saying, but it wasn't your first time digging.
No.
So you had experience from high school, from the postpartum challenges in motherhood, just the transitional seasons, in your life, where when the hardest thing, obviously the passing of a sibling is no small thing at all. That when that most difficult thing came, you had, what's the word I'm looking for? The experience, but also, you come from community, whether it's high fitness, you got the church, you got your family. So I guess talk about that. So you're kind of finally slapped with the hardest thing you've hit. This is like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it's just a little over a year ago.
Okay.
So end of January.
So what is that? I guess, how did those experiences, what you'd been through, how do you feel like it helped to prepare you for that moment? And then also, how weren't you prepared where you found, it sounds like you still got smacked down, which understandably anybody would. But like what changed, or what did you find you had to do more, dig deeper, as you put it, to, get right, to be well, and to work through it?
I think that it was a combination of things. For me, it was, I do have an amazing family and support system. And I think if you don't have one, you need one. Life is hard, and I know this won't be the last of, something to happen to me. I don't wish it upon anybody, but there are challenges in life. And I think having that support system, whether it's family or not family, friends, that's kind of, when my brother passed, my family, we just made a decision and we're like, this will not pull us apart. So having that, your family, it's like, I have your back, you have my back. We're getting through this. There's no other choice.
Yep.
Having that kind of had me turn my, switch a little bit, like, okay, mom and dad are on board. Jordan and JC are on board. I'm on board.
That's
We're
awesome.
doing this. Our kids are in. We're all in. And then I had, my close group of friends that walked with me during that season, that continue to show up, that continue to think about my brother, talk about my brother, support me. If that means that I'm quiet for a few days, they give me the space. If it means, hey, I want to meet you for coffee, let's meet for coffee, or I'll drop off this because I was thinking about you, a note, let's go for a walk. You have that people that are thinking about you and that want to come alongside you and support you.
Means a lot.
And it doesn't just stop.
Yep.
That's the thing, finding that community. And I think that helped me be in a better place mentally, so that I did have the ability to want to work and get in a better place mentally and physically after his passing. I wanted that for myself, and I know I felt supported and loved, and that others wanted that for me. So,
and I'm sure, for some people, probably most people, it takes the rest of your life to, really adjust to something like that to some extent. How does it feel today versus, a year and a half ago? What does that process look like for you? Like, how do I say this? I've never had a sibling pass, but going through my own challenges and struggles.
Yourself, though, right?
There are some days, especially as a just owning multiple businesses and just certain challenges and things, and the other normal day-to-day life things that come up. When my days are like hardest, when I know I'm most depressed or most most depressed or most I guess off-put, I don't even have like the wherewithal to do what I normally look forward. Like, I know the biggest red flags or like lights are flashing for me when the things I love doing, when I look forward like the most to doing, when I have no motivation, like when that's gone.
Yeah.
That's a check for me. Like, oh, I'm in a not good spot for that. So like, it sounds like there might have been a little bit of that potentially when your brother passed, which again, understandably so. And I know that it's been really hard for me, and I have my methods that I've learned over the years, or whether it's going to my wife or certain really close friends. Sometimes it's my dad. I sometimes it's a simple text or a call that's like, we need to talk. And these certain people know what I mean when I say that. Sometimes it's just having that if it's my wife, she might just need to hear me, and then she'll offer her, her wisdom, her thoughts. Usually if it's my dad, I need the more practical. I need to know X, Y, Z, what you think. Because
direct approach.
Because sometimes this will happen in business, and it can really be, again, I'm not trying to compare it to losing a sibling, so I hope it doesn't sound that way.
Not at all.
But it can be very heavy. It can be a burden that only you feel, especially when you're leading a company. And you take it seriously when you're providing for people and their jobs and like their livelihoods. And so sometimes I will be so vexed because I will just sit there for hours trying to figure out a problem. And I'm like, nope, can't figure it out. And there's a deadline looming, and I feel extra challenged, and it's impacting my ability to just do, if I can't go home and think, or I don't do the things I love, then it's like, okay. And you reach out to my dad and like, hey, I need an XYZ session. What am I missing? And almost every time there's something he can give me. And if not, at least encouragement and, some refreshing, and I can get back on track. So I guess my question is, this is a very long way to put it, but hopefully it's making sense. Yeah. What does that look like for you over the last year? It sounds like you kind of, even though you've learned some grit and some toughness over your own challenges, it sounds like losing a sibling it knocked you off your feet a little bit.
Yeah.
And what has it taken to get you back to back into fitness, like that you said that you need, and just kind of back into your routine and still being able to cope with and overcome, the loss of your sibling, and maintaining that, those relationships with your family. What does that look like for you over the last year?
I wish I could give you a roadmap, but
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I don't think there is one. Grief is very interesting, and I'm learning a lot about it over the last year. It does come in waves. It's funny because people will say, oh, it gets easier. And I'm like, really? I feel like it's the opposite. I felt like at the beginning I was almost numb, and now that I'm allowing myself to feel, I think, from what you were saying too, is allowing myself to sit in my grief now, which I didn't do a year ago.
Yeah.
it is actually more healing to me because I'm able to give myself permission to feel those feelings. And I never allowed, it was like, I'm not allowed to feel, I have to stop crying. I can't be upset. I have to move forward. I have deadlines at work. Like you said, I have 2 kids. I just have to put a face on, and it's like, no, I'm allowed to sit in my feelings.
Yeah.
And if that means it's going to take me a couple hours, I can feel it. I can accept my feelings and I can move forward. And I feel like allowing myself and giving myself the permission to do that has really helped, push me into being in a better place in my mind so that I could dig into working out, exercise, all of these things, and still wanting to live and thrive in life. I feel like allowing yourself to sit in your grief, you can have joy and grief exist at the same time. It's very complicated, but it's possible. And I feel like I'm learning that more now than I have, even from when he first passed.
Very well said.
Yeah.
And I think that, what I learned anyway in those moments, if it's taken me longer to push past it, or, whatever that grief or that dark moment looks like, I think over the various times doing it, I'm 37. I'm not that old, but I don't know that I'm not that young either anymore. But I think I've done it enough that I think I realize in every instance that if I choose to dwell too long in the dark place, with being impaired from what I normally do, that always ends up being worse for me than it is to. It's like you said it earlier. You said just to show up and just do it, even if I can't give it, for me, it would look like a good, strong, 13-mile run on a Saturday. Even if it means I can only do a couple miles, it's better to do something and to at least try to get back into my normal routine. And sometimes it's a fight to get comfortable doing that again because you're so depressed or you're so discouraged. But then you start notching little wins or little momentum and you feel like you're back on track. That's always better than just sitting there defeated and I can't get back at it. And some days it sounds silly, but these are little things I've learned. I normally like to work out or exercise in the morning. That's just that's my thing. Some days, in order to literally get it done, I had to go to my work day first just to know that I could overcome the things that were stressing me in order to enjoy my workout in the evening. If that's what it took, then that was the bargain I'd make with myself. It's not that I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
It's just I got to squeeze it in this evening.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be shorter than it would have been this morning. But psychologically, I needed that at easement to ease the anxiety or whatever the struggle was.
Yeah.
Sometimes I needed that, and it just was simple as swapping it in the evening. So I guess my point is, I don't think there's a roadmap either. I agree with you. But sometimes, I don't know, psychologically, we're weird that way sometimes.
Very
sometimes
weird, yeah.
you just need the momentum or the little victories in order to clear the way to do the other things you need to do. You know what I'm saying?
I think that we've talked about seasons, adapting, persistence, resilience. I think my biggest takeaway, and for myself mainly, personally, is I find these seasons and they kind of go like this, right? And they get longer, harder. Aaron and I will have really hard conversations and I learn. And so that season gets further and then I make more success business wise. And then we do all this stuff. The hard part is when you go up and up like this, and then you get to a point where you hit a really low point after all of this work. I think that's the main takeaway. So you live this life, you have a great family, all this stuff. You have a fitness community.
Yeah.
You've got people that follow and talk to you. You've got friends, family, support groups, church, excellent parents. I know both your parents. They're top notch. Just everything. And so as we take the typical approach of perfection's not like this, right? We have these what happens with people is they hit this point where they're right here, they drop really low. So in the midst of all of these things, what adaptations, what persistence, what resilience have they built all together from years of doing this up and down, grievance, loss, business failures, everything. How is that all put together to get back up to that little point? Even though it's not even that much further up, how do you survive that massive drop? I think there's a lot of people out there that work their butts off for years. And I think every once in a while, they hit that drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not.
You know what I'm saying?
It's well said.
It's kind of less talked about. It's like there is a bigger drop on that slope up.
And I mean, yeah, because whereas not to minimize anything you said earlier, but I think to Sean's point where, postpartum or other challenges, things you've been through, I mean, I'm sure they were challenging in dips, but like losing a sibling, that's like a gut punch. I mean, so it's like,
your life kind of stops.
And I guess the climb back to where you were going or where you were is a lot steeper than maybe like anything before that. So it's, I guess to Sean's question is like, how do you climb that peak?
How do you mind that gap after all that work and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, gee, I don't know if I can ride my bike today or do high fitness anymore or run in the mornings. And you find yourself actually deeper than you've ever been in the last decade, 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah. I think you touched on it a little bit. You said you just have to show up. Sometimes in the beginning, it is just hey, I may not be able to do what I did, a year ago, but I'm going to start by just showing up. I'm going to set my alarm. I'm going to show up at this class. If that means I barely do anything, I barely participate, whatever, it's showing up, whether it's work. It doesn't mean you have to be hitting this goal or doing, it's just, the mindset of showing up, because you do have to rebuild. You do have to, I don't want to say bounce back, but that's what it is. Yeah. And for me, I think it'll be a forever journey. I don't, somebody once told me, and this is crazy because when you've been married, the longer you've been married, you understand this too. But when you go through hard seasons, even in your marriage, you kind of always feel like you're going up a hill, and it doesn't really ever stop. I know that's not really positive, but it's
true. It's funny.
True.
It's funny because everyone knows that's true.
Everyone knows it's true.
It's the best part.
You don't ever get to the top. I mean, you have value.
You're always chasing.
You are. Yeah. And some seasons are low seasons in your marriage, and you do weather things. And the longer you're married, I'm starting to understand more and more about that. And you do go through hard things, and you do have to persevere through things that maybe 20 years ago you thought you wouldn't have to, even in that, and having kids and work demands and all of these things. And then you throw in, life circumstances like my brother passing. I mean, I kind of shut down to everyone, like you said, dropping off that hill or that mountain you built.
Yeah.
And I think just showing up, starting by showing up, that is your number one thing. And
I think on top of that, well said, and you just acknowledged that, I mean, frankly, to what you said, you're probably not going to get back to where you were for a while. I mean, like, and as long as, like, I guess to Jenna's point is like, I mean, it's just knowing that you're back on the right direction.
Yeah.
But I'm probably not going to get back climbing to where I was, for a while.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. It just matters that I'm not sinking lower or staying, down here. I'm just getting back up and trying to get back
each day,
trying to get back to that point.
5 minutes.
Yeah. And push past it. And then, I mean, I think I was mentioning to you before when we were talking before the podcast, what resonated with me, I was only able to catch a small portion. But I was like, I know the Rivera family. I don't know. I just wanted to tune in. And
Jordan was my reading buddy at Liberty when he was in second grade, and I was in Mr.
Oh, he's going to love that shout out.
That's how I know.
He's going to love that shout out.
He was in Mr. Jager's class, and I would go read books to. That's how I know Jordan.
That's right. Okay, that's funny.
That's great.
He'll laugh.
Yeah, obviously, the size of the people, the amount of people that turned out for your family was was awesome. I mean, it's testament to your impact as a family and obviously him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But your mom in particular, which is the part I caught. I was at work, and so I caught a little bit of it. But she said it so well, and it's a lot easier said than done, I think. But she clearly is doing a great job of it. is you focus on the positive. You focus on the purpose of, his life and of your guys' bond as a family, and you honor his memory, the way you live, and how tight you are as a family. And I mean, that's what more can you do? And so I respect that, because I'm a very, I guess I'm kind of an X's and O's, kind of a logical kind of a person. So, and it's not that I'm not spiritual, but at some extent, the way I function is, it's like, okay, where is just dwelling here going to get me? At some point, that's just kind of how I function. It's like, it's not going to take me anywhere.
No.
If I sit here and I stay here forever, I'm not going to really go anywhere. And I felt like what resonated with me with your mom was just like, hey, as a family, I'm choosing to like not only give this memory with you today positively and strongly and powerfully, but like we're going to honor him, and we're going to be positive, and we're going to be tight as ever as a family, and we're going to share openly about him. We're never going to forget him. And I mean, it's just like from the get right there at the funeral, and I was just like, wow, she didn't even need like a moment
like
to
all
really
healthy adaptation.
Yeah, she didn't really need a moment to. I mean,
Not
and
normal.
I'm sure she's had her own personal moments, but it was strong, and I don't think to someone like me, that's not like that she wasn't sensitive to your brother. It was quite the opposite. It was just but she is fully embraced that this is the way that I'm in a healthy way gonna cope with this, and it's gonna be good for me and my family, and it's what I've determined. Hey, this is what I can do. It's not the hand I want, but this is the best way, and I just loved that. I thought it was great. So. Yeah,
she, and that's another thing. I am very blessed, because I come from a foundation of two very strong people, the strongest people I've ever known. And I know anybody can say that about their parents, but I've seen it lived out.
Sure.
And if I lost one of my sons, I don't know if I would be in the same spot that my parents are in. I have honestly seen strength that I didn't even know was physically or humanly possible. And I know a lot of it they have, from their spiritual background, they said they wouldn't have been able to survive without God and without family and support. But I think seeing them and the way that they have continued to fight every day makes me not want to back down.
100%.
Like
Fight and inspire others.
Fight and inspire
at literally the same
the
time.
same time. It's in them. It's like you talk about, dig in your podcast. It's like you have to dig in through the deepest, darkest parts of you to be able to physically come out of something like that. And my parents are two of the strongest people I've ever known. And I think that helps from my perspective, being their daughter, having that support and seeing it lived out. It encourages me to want to fight that as well.
I love that.
Fight to live.
For sure. Well, I don't think there's any
thrive.
better way to.
I was just gonna say,
I don't think there's much further to be said. I think that was very well said.
That isn't impactful as it's gonna get.
I agree. Well, thank you, Jenna, for being on and for being transparent and willing to share, your story. And
Jenna, when do you teach? When are your classes? When can people see you reach out? No, I mean, we love reaching out.
Yeah.
And we know there's people, I mean, Megan will share. You'll share.
Do you have,
what's your schedule like and stuff?
Well, and first of all, do you have a high fitness handle, specifically for social media? And what is that?
So it's High Fitness Jenna.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry. That wasn't. It's Jenna Juice Fit.
Jenna Juice Fit.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot that I changed it because I had so many formats going on that I did it.
Jenna Juice Fit. If anyone wants to follow you or get in on the fitness community,
yes.
you better. Okay.
And then I teach Monday nights at 5:30 p.m. at GB3 Clovis. So on Herndon.
So it's
Fowler.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
And it's free for members. And then if you're not a member, you can still drop in. It's $10.
And if 20 new members in the next 7 days come, just reach out. 20 people you don't know, Aaron and I will personally show up to a class.
Oh.
Okay. I think you guys
2-0 though.
We didn't.
You know your followers.
Sean and I didn't talk about this.
We don't need
you guys
to.
might be flying off the ceiling.
But I know what high fitness is, and I know the way people share and talk about stuff. So 20 new people that have not done high fitness, we will show up in a dig kit.
I can't say no now.
Yeah. Well, that would be awesome. I mean, it would be awesome to have you guys.
That'd be fun.
You down?
Yeah,
I'm down.
I'm down.
He's making the agreement for you.
Megan will be
Right
there
here.
too.
Yeah, Megan will be moral support.
So will Kelsey.
Okay.
Perfect.
Done deal.
Okay, perfect.
Well, Jenna, thanks a lot.
Thank you
and
for having me.
This was great.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And yeah, thanks again for being on with us.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you
Jenna.
for having me. Thanks.
Thanks.